Hi everyone, it's Norman Koshnek here from Eyes on Cricket with Norman Koshnek. I'll tell you where I am a bit later on down the track, but clearly we're here to talk about one thing and one thing only, and that's the ICC ODI World Cup. It's something of a revelation. I've loved it, and I certainly have been to a lot of matches. We'll go through that in a minute. But I want to first introduce who has also joined me, and that is David Graveney. How are you, David?
I'm fine, thanks, Norman. Yeah, very good. I also have been following it. It's been really good viewing. It's fitted in the right timings for summer in the UK. So I don't think I've been great company for my family for the last few weeks, but it's, I think it's been really good. I don't know why people are criticising it. I think there's been lots of really good play, and today everybody going berserk about the wicket or the BCCI moving the wicket, but how can you complain if somebody gets nearly 400 runs and somebody actually halfway through the chase were on target to actually get those runs?
Exactly. So I detest pitch talk and conditions talk because it's been irrelevant for this series, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The toss has certainly favoured certain teams, like clearly South Africa win matches when they bat first and are like deer in front of headlights when it comes to batting second. They're not, the way they play. I witnessed them play against India. They were atrocious, all out for 83. Yeah. And then even when they played Netherlands, they were atrocious. Yet they played brilliantly otherwise when they bat first. But yeah, that's not.
Well, I think when they're top order, I think this applies to a number of the other teams. India have played fantastic cricket, but if in the situation they happen to lose a couple of wickets to start with, which actually ironically they did against England.
Yeah.
And actually their bowling attack got them out. And ironically, would Shami have been playing if Hardik Pandya had still been fit? Because
great question.
He wasn't selected in the first team to start with.
It's almost given him an edge. It's almost given Shami an edge to know that he has to perform because he may not be in the team.
Yeah, and I think that they were highlighting it in the commentary today. Is actually when the lights come on for an hour, then normally when the side fielding second, the ball tends to do just a little bit more.
For sure.
And that certainly will be sustained if you've got a new ball from both ends. That if I was asked to say what one thing would you change, I would remove the two balls, because I think that bowlers need to be able to reverse swing it at the end. They just don't have any weapons. They just get murdered all over the place. Murdered's not the right word, but getting hit a lot because what can they do? They have a fielding restriction that is difficult unless you're bowling some spin at the end. The way that the ball is hit, and the innings that Maxwell played, the only weapons that the opposition have is if the batsman goes down with cramp, which happened there, and they just kept hitting out the ground on one leg. So that would be.
But you must agree that like Harris Ralph, who I think a lot of, has been absolutely belted to kingdom come in this series, and because he bowls generally one pace, and that's generally fast, and it just suits the batsman down to the ground under these conditions, doesn't it?
Well, misdirected pace bowling, Norman, is nobody's intimidated by pace anymore if it's not bowling the right area, and he is quick. Make no mistake, he would be. But I would say the same thing has happened to Wood from time to time for England.
Yes.
And if Archer had been fit, he might have gone the distance as well.
Stark hasn't been overwhelming either.
No. So I think actually Sammy and some of the way that people have approached the game is going back. It's a bit of a throwback to the past. In other words, making sure you don't lose too many wickets in the power play. That's not blocking. But India are very distinctive on whose role's going to do what. And there's no doubt that the captain has decided that he is going to play that way. But everybody else after that is just playing normal cricket. They just happen to be very good players playing really well. So.
Exactly. I mean, we've got a fellow called Atik Halim. He's just joined us from Cardiff in Wales.
All right.
Nice to have you join. Now, David's obviously in England, and I have been in India, as I think I mentioned to David off air. I've seen a number of matches. I've been very lucky to have seen matches like India, Pakistan, India, Australia, India, South Africa, all incredible matches. Obviously, India slaughtered all three of them. I saw a very interesting match where England played Bangladesh and Dharamshala, which was England won that match.
Yeah.
It was a very impressive day.
Unbelievable, Norman. Unbelievable ground that is. The backdrop of that is just extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary.
It's a pleasure to be there. It's endless colour, endless sights. The backdrop of the mountains are phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
But that's the beauty of the tournament. On one hand, you've got people wearing woolly hats up there, and the backdrop of the mountains. Then you're going to Mumbai, where they're basically playing in a sauna, and Chennai's the same.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think they've been there. A variation of grounds, and I think what has come through is India is a huge country, particularly if you live in the UK, and I think the BCCI have done a fantastic job to stage a tournament like this.
Oh, look, today obviously we saw David Beckham turn up to the match, which added a bit of spark. We had obviously Sachin Tendulkar there watching KOHLI knock off his 49, making his 50th test. He's only 100. But the one thing that annoyed me about that whole thing was the BCCI guy, I forgot, his name eludes me, who kept clapping over in front of Tendulkar's face so he could be seen on television whenever they flashed. Did you see that?
Well, there is unfortunately a trend worldwide, Norman. If somebody spots a TV camera somewhere in their direction, they behave like 3-year-olds. And that is grown adult, and it happens all over the place. So,
but he's meant to be someone of position and power who shouldn't have to be so undignified. But he seems to have forgotten. I've forgotten his name. It was embarrassing. You watched the footage, you'll see. Tendulkar's been they're panning at Tendulkar after KOHLI gets his 100, and there's KOHLI's wife not far away, and this guy's just right in front of Tendulkar's face.
And actually, I would have to say that has been a really good thing, and it seems to me that a lot of the sides have their wives there. The Australians appear to have their wives.
Certainly do, yeah.
South Africans appear to have their wives, and the Indian wives obviously are recognised by the TV company, and they behave in a very mature way, and supporting their husbands, which I think is great. I think it's been really, really good.
I think so too. Absolutely.
Whoever's making the blue shirts is making a pretty fortune. That's the thing.
Oh gosh. Now we're at a stage now where India has defeated New Zealand. India are through to the final. Firm favourites, no matter what anyone says. We'll go through all the teams in a minute, try to dissect them, how they've gone.
Yeah.
But India now will play who is the big question. It's obviously going to be either Australia or South Africa. And tradition, I'll call it tradition, but past history will tell us that the likelihood of South Africa choking is extremely high. They've even proven in this tournament when they were out for 83 against India and against Netherlands they were beaten, that they somehow can't handle pressure when it's against them. What's your thoughts?
Well, the key thing is the toss, Norman. I think at this stage of the tournament, if you can win the toss and if it's a really hot conditions, and then you get to bowl in that sort of twilight area, there's a lot of things that are in your favour. And I think that particularly in South Africa's case, if they lose the toss, I don't want to say lose the toss, lose the game, but it'll make them very difficult. The evidence has seen that them trying to chase the total could be difficult for them. However, it has interesting twists. The battle between, it's not an individual battle, but de Kock and Warner could be playing their last match. So let's
not say could. I think it should or will.
Yeah, but that's they obviously want to play 2 games rather than 1. So
true.
How is that going to respond to them? You're right on some of the bowlers have not necessarily done fantastically well, but yeah, I think whoever wins the toss will bat first, and I think that will be a big advantage. I just have a suspicion, Norman, that if South Africa won the toss, I think they could win the game.
It's an intriguing point, because if they bat to their ability, we're looking at 400. Okay.
Well, when they batted first, they are unbelievable. Well, the way they played at the Wankhede Stadium, unless that ground's got very small. It wasn't small the last time I was there.
No, it has
just hitting. They are hitting the ball miles. It's not even just going over the boundary edge. It's like two tiers back, some of the stuff that's been hit. So I think if they bat the way that they can bat, but I think in some ways South Africa trying to mirror India and trying to keep as many wickets in the hutch until, let's say, the 30th over. That if you go too fast and lose 3 wickets in the power play, you're a little bit on the back foot. You know, you stick or twist or whatever. The longer it goes on, you're only 1 wicket down, 2 batsmen are at the crease. The run rate just increases and increases, which is very old school in terms of, it looks to me that people referring, well, all it is 2 T20 games. You know, you just keep bashing out of the park. But I don't think the biggest scores have been created by losing wickets early on. They tended to be, 120 for no wicket, 120 for 1.
Yeah.
And people just accelerating from that. And then both sides have I just think about Australia's depth and who's actually, the Maxwell innings was just extraordinary.
Yeah.
I'm delighted for him because he's sometimes flattered to deceive. Warner's played exceptionally well. But some of their other batsmen, they're not in the same form, I don't think, as Markram is or Miller or anything like that. So,
or Klassen, for that matter.
Yeah. Well, Klassen is, again, exceptional player. So I think some of the Australians are, not to say that they won't be able to perform tomorrow, but they haven't got the volume of runs as the South Africans have. So, but I do think the toss does take a bit of pressure off the side whoever wins the toss.
Absolutely. But my other point about South Africa is, even though they've done particularly well throughout the whole tournament, they started extremely well. And if anything, they've fallen away a little bit towards the end. In particular against India, they were horrific with their 83. Okay, they did bat second, yes, not first, and that would have been a problem for them. But I just wonder whether Australia are peaking at the right time. They had a very poor start, which I wrote them off almost immediately.
Yeah.
But they're peaking towards the end of the tournament, which seems to me to be the danger of South Africa.
I think in any of these knockout tournaments, picking the right time, stating the obvious, Norman, but I think Australia, I think some sides respond to when they know that they've just got to win every game. There's not, they did it in the UK in '99 when they lost a couple of games to start with, and they just won every game after Herschel Gibbs dropped a catch at Headingley, which actually would have probably then would have beaten Australia in that game. So I think I don't know to what degree people really get twitchy about past history. There's been a lot of emphasis on, well, Alan Donald sadly has received a lot of press, unnecessary press, and a lot of it. Yeah, and it's also been based a bit on reflections on what happened in '99 when they dropped the bat and all sorts of things like that.
Yeah.
And that still lingers with him now.
I've got no doubt. See, the problem with South Africa, like Australia can call in Ricky Ponting, Gilchrist, any number of players to talk about how they won a World Cup.
Yeah.
South Africa can't call former players in to talk about how they won a World Cup. So they lack the change room dynamics of trying to rev this team up. Can't be a former player, in my opinion.
No, but again, they started. Well, let's take the series that they played against Australia, both T20s and 50 overs. They got absolutely annihilated in the T20s with Mitch Marsh smashing it all over the place. Then suddenly there's a bit of change of fortune, and the pendulum not just edged the other way, it swung massively the other way. And I think they've taken a lot of confidence for that. You know, it wasn't just narrow victories; they were pretty hefty victories. So.
But then explain to me the game against Netherlands. Explain to me the way India trounced them. Really, that doesn't have confidence about it, in my opinion.
No, but I think that if you can, and then there's again no criticism of the captain, South African captain. Yeah, but he hasn't got a lot of runs, so
no, he hasn't.
It definitely falls on Quinton de Kock to get the runs, but Vermaelen was injured in the last game, and talking about his hamstring or whatever. The guy who came in to replace him when he got injured the first time round, in some ways made him a stronger team.
Look, if I were South Africa, it's not going to happen, but if I was South Africa, I wouldn't have Vermaelen in the team, to be honest with you. I'd say let him feign an injury.
There are reasons that you and I know that's the reasons.
We know exactly the reason why. We know exactly the reason why.
I know he can play, but if he's not fit to play, then I don't think it's going to suddenly demolish their team. I think Markram's a really good captain.
Oh, great captain.
They've got some, but they've also their seam attackers had some injuries as well, hasn't it? So Ngidi
and their spin attack hasn't been bad. Maharaj has been pretty good.
No, he's actually, given that the injury that he had, where he appeared to be shot behind the knee, and everybody wrote him up. Achilles tendon injuries can be career-ending. So to him come back from that, and they've looked a really good, committed side on paper. They've got some really dangerous batsmen in the middle order, but a lot rests on Quinton de Kock to set them off at the right speed.
He felt the pressure against India. It was very clear. The way he batted was very tense. He wasn't his free self, and ended up hitting his wicket. And he actually got hit and was actually slightly injured as well in that process.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the Cox paramount to them. And ultimately, well, with Markram and Klassen there in support, and Van der Dusen didn't do badly either. They've got a bit of depth, you're right.
He is a bit of the glue. He's obviously not and nowhere near like KOHLI, but it's the same sort of job. I'll stick around where you guys, if we can get ourselves into a position after 30 overs and we'll just hit the accelerator, which they've done.
Let's go back to Australia for a moment. Now, they've done very well towards the end of this tournament. We can see that, but the match that Maxwell pulled out that double century, that was 7 for 91, and he was ultimately dropped as well twice, I believe. The fact is, if Australia were all out for, say, 120, and then Afghanistan won that match, that could have really dented Australia quite sizably.
The drop catch at short fine leg was the easiest catch in the world. So hopefully the guy's house hasn't been damaged or anything like that. Sometimes that can happen in the subcontinent, but
it does.
it was just an extraordinary. And if you're talking about Afghanistan, I think they presented that guy Noor, who bowls left arm wrist spinner. He played in the World Cup for Afghanistan 2 years ago, under 19s. Wow. So I think they've got some exceptional players, and I think that's put them on the stage actually in lots and lots of crickets. They've got some really, really fine attacking batsmen. Rashid Khan, ironically, I don't think is the same threat at 50 overs as he is in T20, because people can just afford to play him and not worry about it. But I think as a side, I think they've done exceptionally well.
Well, as we know, our good friend Mohsen Sheikh, we've had on the show many times.
Yeah, I know. He's featuring a lot on social media. No, good. I'm delighted for him because he's a delightful guy.
Oh, exactly. And I met him briefly in Delhi in the middle of the series, and he was telling me how buoyant they were, and he played a role in the mental game for them as well, by the way, because he drew upon his experience, and they really loved him for that. And he's a backroom player for them big time. And he said he's never seen a team with more zeal and more confidence and more let's go out there and win about their play, and there's nothing to lose attitude, which is brilliant.
It's just a shame in sport, Norman, that such a decisive or determining moment of a simple drop catch can just change the course of their cricket, really.
Well, they could easily have been in the semi-final, couldn't they? They were, if they'd won that match, they were on, was it 10 points, and they were going to be equal with most of the teams. In fact, New Zealand's run rate would have been the only factor. But I think they mentally fell apart after that, because when they played South Africa, they didn't play well at all. So
no. Which was I understand why that can happen, but World Cups are really defining sort of tournaments, moments in history that can be terminal for lots of reasons. Suddenly sides who fail to perform are suddenly broken up. Babar's now resigned from Pakistan of captain in all three formats of the game. Sri Lanka have now been suspended from the ICC, so that's about as dramatic as it can get. So, obviously there was a debate around England. I think
I'm glad you mentioned England, because we haven't spoken of England at all so far. I want your full take of that.
I think, and I've often spoken on this program about the honesty and the refreshing attitude of Robert Key, which was summed up with this: he blamed himself because, and I can understand that, because in my tenure of being chairman selectors, invariably the World Cup followed immediately after an Ashes in Australia. And I was asked the $1 million question: what's more important, the Ashes or a World Cup? Well, it depends how you're doing.
We know the answer is to that.
Yes. But trying to prepare a team or select a team, and I think that was the same sort of scenario. And I'd have to say that it was maybe one tournament too many for a group of players that were coming to the end of their tenure. So,
well, they picked up their speed towards the end, though. They played well towards the end.
Well, they got enough runs. So they kept getting bowled out, and Stokes coming back and batting in the manner that he did. Joe Root eventually got some runs. But there were people.
Butler was disappointing, wasn't he? Butler was disappointing, batting wise.
Yeah, no,
Butler was very disappointing.
That is the classic scenario of why people. I'm not saying he has given up the captaincy, but there comes a period in time when you're wheeled in front of a press conference after yet another defeat. What do you say? And he is a really delightful guy, and you could tell that it was every time that was happening, it was taking a bit out of him every time. So he would be. He obviously would be disappointed by his form, but I do think that, and I think the conditions in India, certainly the grounds, were really demanding. So if you're keeping wicket and you're captain, that becomes sometimes an impossible job. You spend half your time going and speaking to the bowlers, and it just wears you down after a while. So
unless you're an MS Dhoni, of course, because he seemed to revel that situation, and he obviously was his own country India whenever he won the World Cup, but he was an exception to that rule.
He had some experienced bowlers around him, so
that's true.
Again, sounds really old-fashioned, but if you're worth your salt as a professional cricketer, as a bowler, you should be able to set your own fields, or you should have people around you who just say, "Why don't you?" And I know the fielding restrictions do make it a little bit more difficult, but it doesn't require the captain to run the whole length of the pitch to come and have a chat to you. Just make sure the guys, the most experienced players, are somewhere near the bowler if they're a young bowler. But Adil Rashid doesn't need anybody set his field for him, and nor does Chris Wokes or anybody like that. So I think that the being captain and also losing when you're regarded as one of the favourites. Took its toll on Joss and took its toll on his form more than anything else. So, and I had England in my final. Norman, I think was. I don't see them. again, great respect to Ireland. I don't think three games against Ireland in September in England is the right preparation to go to the subcontinent to play 50 over cricket. We have a major flaw in our game is we don't play enough 50 overs. Not saying that lots of other people play masses of it, but we are the only country that play 2 domestic tournaments like T20. One T20, one 100-ball game. That is miles too much short form cricket, which in the end will get people to play the wrong way.
Oh, exactly. No, I totally and utterly agree with you. And it was evident in the way that England played. Let's go through the whole 10 very quickly, all 10 teams. 10th was Netherlands. They looked good in part, especially when they beat South Africa. They seemed to be able to handle it with the big boys, but they just didn't get across the line in the end. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think they will be disappointed having beaten South Africa early in the competition.
Yeah,
they never really reproduce the same form. They will benefit from in the South African game. South Africa had to chase, which they failed dismally.
Yeah.
Holland batted first, and they never got the right amount of runs to give them half a chance of defending. And that would be a problem for them, because if like anything, if you can get enough, not necessarily the optimum score, but let's say something over 200, you knock a couple of wickets out of the beginning. They've had some guys that have played county cricket or played a high level of cricket, which would have served them well, but they ended up having to field first, in my recollection, quite a lot of times, and their opening bowlers got absolutely spanked all over the place. So
yeah,
I think that I think beating South Africa was not. It was a shock, but it was a shock that was waiting to happen, and they just didn't have the opportunity to reproduce that form after that. So I think bottom line is that they will be disappointed with their end result.
No. Now 9, I think it was Sri Lanka or Bangladesh. I'm not sure it was 9. What do you think of both those teams, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, in this series?
Under par. You would say Sri Lanka beat England, so I would say you're talking about a 4 out of 10 in both instances, and there'll be lots of meetings, particularly Sri Lanka. I'm not quite sure what Sri Lanka are going to do now. I mean, they're supposed to be staging under 19 World Cup in January and February, but they can't do that if they've just been suspended.
It's scary.
You and I we're really fond of the country and the people. And I've seen their under 19 teams over the last few years. They've got some really good players. I don't know where there's been a breakdown of communication, but they're certainly not reproducing the form that they can do with the players they have.
Yeah, there's something missing, isn't there? There's something really missing. I think the players are disillusioned by the way the boards handle them, for sure. And there's a lot of dissension within the ranks because of that, especially when it comes down to captaincy. Even Angelo Matthews, the way he conducted himself when he got back in the team was almost like he was captaining the team, you would argue.
Again, same principle, having too many younger players finding their way. But it's a great collapse of form from what they've done in the Asia Cup in the last couple of tournaments, where they've been a handful. So I think, and you and I know that the cricketing public in Sri Lanka are passionate about their team. They'd be distraught with the way that they've played in this tournament.
They're gutted because
they've got to do a lot of thinking. I think Bangladesh are the same. Again, Bangladesh beat India in not the last World Cup under 19, before that in South Africa, and again, they seem to have a lot of players that emerge at that age group but don't seem to go beyond that. So I think it's getting the right sort of coaches in place. There's always seems to be a bit of controversy around the captain at various stages in Bangladesh, but Sri Lanka is a real issue with me, because they have good players, they've got good ex-players, and they've got to come back in and but even the panel that have been appointed by the sports minister, Ranatunga is obviously a good guy to be involved, but none of the others have any cricketing knowledge whatsoever, which is
the judges, for God's sake, high court judges.
So what's that going to do?
I've got no idea. It's Looney Tunes what they do with this interim rubbish committee. It's just an embarrassment.
Well, they showed. I don't know whether you've seen any of the footage, but they show sort of reflections on previous World Cups. You know, whether it be Donald dropping his bat, but a lot was centered around Sri Lanka winning the World Cup in 1992. I think that's
96, you mean?
No, sorry, 96. And when Ranatunga is receiving the trophy, the guy standing behind him is actually one of my best friends I went to school with, a guy called Anna Punchahewa, who was president of the board. He was removed within 6 months of that day. They just won the World Cup for the first time ever because it's all a political decision. Whoever's in power select their mates, basically.
Absolutely. It's first and foremost, it's who they want rather than who should be in there. And it's disgusting. And you and I know it too well. Simon knows it better than anyone else. He's been
he's
into the group. To me, it's shake your head stuff, and I don't know whether there's an easy fix. I'm afraid.
No, I think that will go on for a while. So those teams at the bottom of the World Cup, then you're moving into the realms of England, and I think that was just a tournament, one tournament too far. Didn't come as a surprise that New Zealand beat them in the first game. That wasn't a surprise whatsoever, because I just think if there's a country that, and it's not an insult to New Zealand, they just perform really well, in tournaments like that. And I think obviously.
Well, Mitchell, how about Mitchell? He's got a big century today. He's really come out of his skin. He's an amazing player.
No, he played for Middlesex a couple of years ago, and he played as a genuine all-rounder because he can bowl as well. But his batting in this tournament, and Ravindra, the young kid who's opened the batting, what a player he is! Jesus, so his life will change forever now, having played like that.
I don't want to forget this point. It's just come to my thoughts about the coach of England in the short format with Mott.
Yeah.
Now he has a great reputation with the women's side of cricket, having had an amazing Australian team that he led by way of his coaching. Is he the real deal though? Coaching for England though, has he transitioned?
Well, I've known him reasonably well before. Have met him on a number of occasions because he was coach at Glamorgan, which is not too far away from me.
Right.
When Matt Maynard was captain, and Matt speaks very highly of him. I saw him at a one-day game during the summer, and he was looking forward to the challenge. I don't know what side. Probably India is the only side that does it now, who can manage to devote sufficient time and energy to both red ball cricket and white ball cricket. England has a bit of an issue when they do it one way or the other. The other element seems to decline. So, but he was the coach when they won the T20 in Australia. So, I think just some of the players, Ben Stokes is a huge player for England. So, with him being injured or trying to play on one leg, which obviously is not satisfactory. And some of the other guys, not necessarily come to the end of their careers, it just seemed they all looked a bit tired, really. So,
I think they're definitely tired, immensely.
Sam Curran being the player of the tournament in the T20 could hardly get the team. So there must be just, I think, a loss of form of the players. India's a really challenging place to go and play, and
especially with 6-7 weeks. Oh, geez.
Yeah, and one-day cricket is brutal, Norman. That if you get in a rut when you're not performing very well, there's no hiding place, and you have to change the formation of your team and whatever. So they and I don't think anybody's trying to make excuses. They just haven't reproduced the form that they are capable of, not to the same degree as Sri Lanka or Bangladesh, but they were below par. And there are some really good teams out there. If you don't do it the right way, it doesn't matter who you're playing, whether it's Afghanistan or anybody else, somebody's been waiting for you. And England has always been the ultimate scalp for all the countries. So you've got to be on that,
especially being World Cup holders as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was disappointing, but didn't come as a great shock, I must admit.
So Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, we've talked about this. There are teams coming through now that are starting to threaten the top levels. When I say top levels, I mean the top 10. We're going to see next year with some 20 teams for the T20 World Cup, how that's going to expand that even more. But okay, the good side of the good upside of all this is Afghanistan. They thought they were in sixth position in the end. Could well have been in the top 4 had things gone their way. There's only superlative to talk about Afghanistan. There's nothing negative to talk about. They really they played above their level, you would argue, and have established.
And people need not to remember the backdrop of how you played for Afghanistan and the issues that you have in the country as a whole. I know that the majority of the players are now based in Dubai anyway, but it's a very complex backdrop to getting 11 blokes on a cricket pitch. So I thought they did brilliantly well. They've obviously got some English guys, he's involved, and I'm sure they've got some other coaches that are drawn from people that we know, drawn from other parts of the world, and I think they've all gelled together and produced a really good team. And it's not all about Rashid Khan either. They have some really good seam bowlers, got some really good batsmen. And I think Nabir is one of the most underrated players, one-day players, because he contributes with ball and bat if there's some spin in the wicket. So the venue of the matches for them was really good because it's subcontinent venues, and I think they responded to the challenge, and people will realise actually they can play. So and the ICC I think have to recognise that and get them to play even more cricket around the world so that their younger guys can expand. But I think a lot of their younger guys will be engaged as overseas players all over the country, all over the world, because they've shown that they can play.
Oh, there's a comment here from Ashish Pandey about Zampa. In fact, Zampa's come up in a lot of commentary. We'll hold on that for the moment. We'll talk about Zampa in a short while. Okay, let's go to Pakistan. They came 5th. They were up and down throughout the tournament. Babar Azam has been questioned as a captain. Fakar was amazing when he came to the team. The bowling was good in patches, but generally disappointing. What's your take on Pakistan in this tournament?
They played like Pakistan play, Norman. You write them off at your peril, really, because they can suddenly turn in a performance that can beat anybody. Again, I think we have to remember that, and I'm glad it happened. Hopefully, people will learn from this that for a Pakistan team to tour India it can be quite challenging for them in terms of the security that has to be around their team as opposed to anybody else's. I didn't go to India, but I'm sure security was pretty high, but it would be more around the Pakistan team than any other. So that can be quite claustrophobic for that period of time. So,
let alone the fan base, because I was at that India-Pakistan match in Ahmedabad. In fact, the Pakistan fans had to go undercover. They couldn't be obviously a Pakistan fan. If they roared when something happened for their team, 3/4 of the crowd looked at that individual person and gave them the dirtiest stare. They didn't play their anthem, I believe. They didn't play their songs. Flags weren't in evidence. It was a difficult wicket for them, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, but they've got, again, talented players. Guy who opened the batting I thought was really good. He petered off a little bit towards the end. And the left-hander that you refer to came in and then smashed it to all parts. Why wasn't he playing before? But
exactly.
He's obviously had a bit of a dip in form. Glad that he's come back. The seam attack is fearsome in terms of pace, in terms of what they can do. The one thing that really disappoints me is the lack of quality spin in Pakistan.
Yeah,
because the spinners they had were again, greatest respect to them, weren't anything threatening. I don't quite understand why they haven't got any spinners, but. And I would have to say that's a little bit like under-19 cricket with them. So that would be on their shopping list, is to have a policy of trying to develop some spin, because they were very unbalanced in their attack, because they were trying to get away with bowling a couple of leg spinners that weren't that good, a left arm spinner. Yeah, they were sadly lacking if they had a quality, if let's say Rashid played behind their seamers, they would be a handful.
Oh,
they just
God,
didn't. They didn't have that quality spin, so that would be.
But as you said, they have got quality spinners. They're just not getting selected.
No, so yeah, they played like Pakistan played, very unpredictable. It's just if you're in opposition, you just got to pray you don't catch them on the wrong day.
Exactly.
But, again, their passionate support. All right, the captain's probably jumped ship before somebody pushed him off the edge of the ship. But see what the political what's his name? The chairman selectors.
Inzamam.
Yeah, he's finished as well. So they lost the chairman selectors. They lost the captain, and Mickey Arthur. Be interested to see what his tenure's like after that. So,
well, that I went to Pakistan during this World Cup. I went and visited the Lahore Qalandars and Aqib Javed, and he was in several meetings with the board about this whole thing because it was going down as I was there. It's intriguing. It's Sri Lanka, the Sri Lankan cricket board, and certainly the Pakistan cricket board have got similarities in the way they clean out their men immediately. It's incredible. No, they should get Aqib Javed in there. My God, is his Lahore Qalandars academy going great guns. Oh my God, they've got that magnificently.
And they've all produced players, and there's no doubt the Pakistan T20 league is a really good league, and they're producing some players from that. So they need to get the young blood in as soon as they can, but they need to find some spin bowlers from somewhere.
Yeah. All right, so let's go back. Let's go to the real deal now. The top four, New Zealand's just been knocked out. They played admirably, I believe. They did very well in their innings.
No, they did brilliantly, absolutely brilliantly. And they've had some injuries, guys that are leading into it the last 12 months. And Kane Williamson, who I'd said to you, expressed my fears of would he come back having had a serious elbow injury, and he's just such an impressive bloke. The way he talks, he's very quick to praise the opposition, which he was today. Didn't portion any blame to his team, and they just recognise when somebody plays better than them. And they found some new talent, which people didn't know about before this tournament. So again, but their transition is used all over the place. They've obviously got some seamers who are coming to the back end of their careers.
Still bowling well, though.
Oh no, they're all, and those are not fantastic conditions for them to bowl in. So I'm always impressed by the way that they play, and even Mitch and Santner, the left-arm spinner, I think is a top bowler. He is.
Oh yes.
He is. If you blink, it's Daniel Vittori bowling basically. So. So exactly. I think he's excellent cricketer. They've got lots of. They'll be disappointed about losing, but they should not criticise themselves for losing semi-finalists in the subcontinent. I think they've done brilliantly.
Oops, we lost David there. I know David.
If they were in the other semi-final, I think they would get through to the final. If they were playing either South Africa or Australia, I think they would have a really good chance of winning that game. For sure. They drew the wrong one in India, basically. So.
But look at them, for God's sake. They were in the final for 2015 and 19. They were in semi-finals, I believe, the year before that in 11. They're incredibly consistent. It's outrageous how consistent.
And there seems to be more people recognising the people who follow the game that they were desperately unlucky not to win in 2019. So many things went against them in the final.
And they ultimately won that. They won the Test championship, of course, didn't they? That was a big coup for them.
No, I think for a small cricketing population compared to other countries, I think they do admirably well. A lot to admire. One about how they go about their cricket, how they play. They're really well led, and they would have probably. They realised. I think they would have probably realised losing all those games towards the end was condemning them to be a fourth semi-finalist.
Yeah,
and then against India. So,
but we've hit a good point here. They're well led. They're also a stable management. a stable
Yeah.
cricket board, and they're the essentials which are needed, to be honest. Okay, let's go to the three that are left. We can talk about India to the cows go home. The superlatives from A to Z is astonishing. Really, they've been almost
but again,
without a blemish.
they've got some really good people in the right positions. You know, that I have the privilege of. I can remember coming down the lift at the Danube's Hotel, which is on the corner by Lord's.
I know it, yeah, well.
Yeah, coming down the lift with England were playing India, and two guys were making their debut or just started to play for India. One was Ganguly, and the other one was Rao Dravid. And they were very polite young men and whatever, wished them well and whatever. And I've seen certainly Rao Dravid a lot because he's involved in Asia cricket since then. Just outstanding player for a start. His stands with Laxman against Australia, to me, is still the best passenger player I've ever seen, really, in anybody. Doesn't matter whether I'm involved with England or not. But the way he leads it's just he has a calmness about the way that he goes about his business. I'm sure he's not calm on the inside. I did ask him, what did you do when he was... I said, do you watch every ball when you were batting number 3 for India? He said, well, I used to until I had to bat behind Sehwag. And I decided I'm not watching him bat. So, he said, I knew when I was due to come in because the crowd would let me know that sort of there'd be a silence. But I think the way he coaches, and they'll have a lot of coaches, Indian coaches, that you and I won't know, actually.
Exactly.
They've been picked as coaches as opposed to being former players. They probably might have all played domestic cricket, but it's not an ex-international being a coach. They're actually good. They're actually good at what they do, and they're well led by Rao Dravid. So you don't sense there's any sort of political battles going on. Well, if you win more than you lose, that will happen. And I was unaware of the qualities of Rohit Sharma as a captain, and he's definitely captained exceedingly well. You know, he's got some egos to deal with in that team, Lord. So that's half the battle. So,
and he leads from the front too, which is extreme. The way he bats, oh my God, what a great start to an innings! Incredible start to an innings.
But it is, dare I say it, proper shots, Norman. You know, I know I mean it is on the offensive, but they are straight back shots. There's no funky shots being played or anything like that.
And, Gill, KOHLI, Shreyas Iyer, they're all proper shots players, aren't they?
No, but Gill is, you know, he's
exceptional.
He'll be groomed as the next KOHLI. So they've got back, and they've also done it. Handit Pandya forced their issue with him being injured because he is a proper superstar in Indian cricket. But they went in this interesting way. They just said, right, we're going to bat 6 batsmen, obviously having Rao as a keeper and a frontline batter batting where he was, and just we'll play the 5 bowlers. We're not going to have a safety valve as a bowler. There's a few guys who could turn their arm over, which they showed against Netherlands. But they said, these are the 5 bowlers we're going to use. As I said to you before, Shami wasn't part of that equation.
Well, that's a question I've just had a question here from Rana. Is Shami better than Cummins, Hazelwood, Stark, and Rabada and Nagini? I mean, in terms of his results in this series, he is number 1, surely.
Yes, but he's following the combination actually of the seam attack is very interesting. Bumrah is the most unique bowler. I think I'd put him as that. You know, by the end of a match, he's not even got a run up. He's like walking in for about 4 or 5 yards just to bowl Yorkers, like an exocet at people's feet. Siraj, the other guy, the opening bowler, is probably their weakest link. But I can understand why they used him because he's got pace, and he does get people out. Even though
he gets a lot of wickets. He gets a lot of wickets.
Where I think Shami is an old-fashioned bowler, as we were talking about today. He just goes to hit the top of off. So yeah, I think the combination of the 3 seamers, but also being able to trust the two spinners. You know, Jadeja is, you know, we have the under-19s actually are in England under-19s are in India as we speak. So they're playing a quadrangular tournament against Bangladesh, India, A and B. They've got so many good young players. They've got to play two teams against us.
Oh my God!
Spread their talent. And our left-arm spinners, I'm saying, so just watch Jadeja bowl on Indian wickets. You know, he bowls to hit the stumps. You know, he doesn't float it outside the off stump or whatever, and he bowls it at a pace that, if there is any uneven bounce in the wicket, then he will extract it. So, and they have a wrist spinner. So I think, but they have entrusted the 5 bowlers. You are the guys who are going to bowl the 50 overs. So the only thing where that falls down is somebody got injured during the game, which is a risk. But I think they're well balanced, but well led, well coached. So it's no wonder where they are. But they'll know that it's, you know, when it gets to the final, it's a fresh game. So, you know, you could lose it within an hour. You're never going to win it in the first hour. Mind you, the way the Indians bat in the first hour, you can win the game. But today showed, no matter what speed you went, New Zealand, it was only a slight chance they had. But when Williamson and Mitchell were playing the way he was playing, and then when Phillips came in and they started having some big overs. But if you're chasing 15 and over, everybody talks, oh, well, what we need now is an over that goes for 20. They needed about 3 or 4 of those. And against India, you're not going to get that many opportunities to do that. So India,
No.
Australia you were quite right in saying about peaking at the right time. And I think that memories are very short, but the way that that Sampa was bowling at the beginning of the tournament, he was a risk to Australia. Now he's been elevated to being their best bowler, so it shows how fortunes can change. But he is doing.
What's your real take on Sampa? I mean, he's a very reliable player.
Norman, still there?
David, are you there? Oh, I can see myself now. This is what I'm getting on the screens here. Are you there? Yeah. I can see myself now. Yeah, I'm going to see myself. David, if you're there, I'll see you there, David.
I can hear you. I can see you now.
You there, David?
So that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So you're asking me about
that's right.
Sampa.
Yes. What's your thoughts?
I think that he's I think he had some really tough experiences when they played in South Africa. I think one of the decisions to allow him to bowl in a one-day tournament where he went for 100, when there are other people in the team who could have stopped, you know, even if bowled 1 over or 2 overs. Mitch Marsh didn't bowl at all in that innings. I think was really poor management of a player. That they're all, everybody's human beings, and you don't want to have a reputation of I've just bowled 10 overs in a one-day game that's gone for 3 figures. So I think it's taken a bit of time to repair his confidence. I think his confidence is back. He's not a massive spinner of the ball. His strength is his accuracy to bowl wicket to wicket. If you miss, I hit. and it's a good variation. Again, not masses of spin, but they've stuck. I would have to say Australia have stuck by Sampa for a long time. Actually, they haven't really tried to experiment with Swepson or some of the other spinners that might be around. Obviously, Maxwell is good in or fantastic in many ways, but the ability to be able to bowl some off spin, if there's something in the wicket, will be and he's played against all these Indians before because he's played in the IPL. So that is obviously a good part of the makeup of the team. I think you're right. They're peaking at the right time. I just have a bit of a question mark about their batting.
I agree. I mean, they were lucky that Maxwell got them out of trouble that game against Afghanistan because they were gone for all money at 7 for 91. They were gone.
Yeah, and Warner's played really well, but Warner and Maxwell have kept their batting afloat. I know Mitch Marsh will have his day, and he'll probably have his day tomorrow. And if they get to the final, he'll have it then. But just doesn't seem to have the same number of people in form as India, dare I say it, also New Zealand, and also South Africa. So I think a lot of responsibility falls on a smaller number of people to get the score. As far as the opening bowlers are concerned, I agree with you in terms of Stark is not firing in all cylinders. And I've also said to you on this program, he's a very interesting bowler. That's when he takes a new ball, if it doesn't swing, well, let's say if he's trying to make it swing, he just keeps bowling it right in the slot for the opposition. And his strength is coming round the wicket, bowling at the end. Hazelwood, I think, is a real consistent performer. Cummings the same, but again, I think you're right. They're peaking at the right time, but I think man for man, I don't think they're as strong as some of the other teams. So that's why I just think it might be South Africa's time, and actually that's been pretty overdue, I think.
David, that's very optimistic of you, saying it's South Africa's time. I would argue it's been a time several other times than they've stuffed up. I had some fun in a Kolkata in the hotel there, the Grand Oberoi. It was full of South African supporters for the match between India and South Africa wearing their South African outfits. And I was walking on the corridor before the match and pretending to choke as I walked past. I copped it big time. I said, excuse me, I think there's something caught my throat. And I gave it to them. They gave it right back to me. But after the game, I was buoyant. I was choking.
I assure you that. Yeah. So, hard one to call. I'm probably sitting on the fence by saying whoever wins the toss, and if they bat first, I think they'll win the game. So,
and that clearly doesn't go against South Africa, because if they do get a big score, they're going to be in an awesome position. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I think they have their bowling attack to, assuming they're all fit, has the bowling attack to defend a big score, and it'll. But once you saw Maxwell play the innings he played like that, you can never discount anything ever again. Really. So.
Oh, for sure. All right, so let's assume that the team that bats first wins the match. Have either of them got any hope at all, David, of beating India in India and Ahmedabad and getting anywhere near?
Same way around. I think in a final or anything like that, if you can post a decent score and then the pressure of chasing in a game of that stature creates its own pressure, even for India. And I think the side that has batted as well as India have, and they've been absolutely awesome, fantastic entertainment, haven't been 30 for 3 ever. So if they end up
against Australia, they lost a few quick wickets in that match, and they still got through pretty comfortably. But I agree. A lot
of people don't get to the wicket. So Rahul has hardly had a hit, though he did get 100, didn't he, in the last couple of games?
Yeah.
But Jadeja certainly hasn't had a hit, and anybody below there. So
Oh, I don't think India's batting will be lacking in any ability to win this. It's India's. It's there for India to lose, isn't it? Really, they're in the box
Yeah,
seat.
the expectation, pressure. Can play funny things in your mind, but they're playing so well, and the likes of Rohit Sharma and Dravid will relax people. Kohli wants to be in a World Cup winning team. He's not going to be around in 4 years' time. So there's a lot to play for. Well, I don't know how many blue shirts will be there, but there's going to be
it'll be 99.9%. Come on.
I don't think
just quickly on this though. Out of Australia in South Africa, who's the team that's more likely to give India a boil over and actually beat them? It's definitely Australia. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think Australia, just streetwise, they've been in this position before. People, they're winners. I know choking is a bit of an emotive subject, but
South Africa, David, there's no other word you can use for South Africa but chokers. I'm sorry. No one can convince me, they're better now, they're younger blokes, blah, blah, blah. No. When it comes to the crunch, they've choked every single time.
Norman, they won't change that unless they get in the winning circle. And I don't
exactly
see this. I don't see this as an opportunity to get in the winning circle. I'd be not devastated because I'm watching it as independent. I'd just be so amazed that if gets to the final, whoever's in the final, that India don't win the final.
Thanks, Dave. It's been a fantastic hour. We've talked for over an hour. I reckon we can talk for another hour. There's so much to talk about.
But I haven't spoken to you for a while. So.
Yeah, it's good though.
If you want to have another go before the final, very happy to.
Yes, definitely, and we might get Chris involved. And I know Adam and Monty have been talking to me as well. And yeah, look, I've been just gallivanting around the world a bit too much myself, but I took a helicopter over.
We didn't even get to talk about Matthew's dismissal either. So.
Whose dismissal?
Angelo Matthews' dismissal.
Oh, look, don't start me on that one. Do you want to talk about it? We'll talk about that next discussion.
Well, I'll just leave you one thought about this, not for you to respond. We'll leave it till next time. Is if the letter of the law was applied strictly in terms of the timing, half the team would be given out on any team.
True.
On any team. So
that's true.
Anyway, we'll talk about it next time round. So
all right, thanks, David. I really appreciate it. We'll get before the final, have a chat. We'll get Chris on. I'll try and get Mosen because of his Afghan experience as well. So
I'd love to speak to him. If Mosen's around, I'd like to congratulate him on live TV. So
for sure, we'll have a chat with him.
David, he can give me all the mobile numbers of all his players so I can sign him to come to England.
Oh, really?
No, I'm only joking. So, that's a breach of data protection or something or other. So. Have a nice time.
Take care.
Speak to you later.
Yeah, we'll talk. Let me be as right. All right, thanks, David. I'll have a bit. Speak to you soon. Well, that was wonderful, guys. We had David Graveney there with his immense experience at all levels of cricket. He knows all about England, knows about a whole host of teams, and he's interacted with them all. Let's be honest. This is India's World Cup to lose. They're going to win on all accounts. They've got the crowd behind them, the conditions, the great team. Every single player you can imagine has played well. Gill, Sharma, KOHLI was sensational, 700 plus runs, all the superlatives. Shreyas Iyer has been fantastic. Even Sky's done well. There's not a fault in their team. Sharma's 7 wickets. Oh my God, they've played well all round. The way they skittled South Africa for 83. There's nothing but superlatives for India. They deserve to win it by a country mile. Aditya Roy's joined us. Vishal Ganta's here. We've got a few people with their comments. We've had a lot of people talking as well. Look, the reality is that India's now in the final, in the box seat. It's theirs to lose. They should win on all accounts, whether it's Australia or South Africa. I don't think South Africa have a hope in the hell of winning tomorrow. The South Africa haven't got a hope in hell. Batting first or second, they will not be mentally strong enough to win this. They've proven it time and time again. They're going to prove it again. Australia, if they win, will bat first. Even if South Africa bats first, I think the Cox played his best games. Cluster has too. I think they're not going to get their best, I would argue. Australia will have that mental strength of a semi-final, final atmosphere. That will help Australia get across the line. It'll be India versus Australia. Yes, Australia could beat India, but I don't think it's likely. India's going to win that. So let's get back together, guys, for a live broadcast in only a matter of a couple of days. We've just talked in lieu of the Australia-South Africa match, just after the India-New Zealand match. We'll talk just before the India versus Australia/Sri Lanka final, and I'll get people together, such as Chris, David, Moses, and Shake. We'll hope to get him as well. So it's really going to be a great show. Didier Roy said I can finally say India knocked New Zealand out of the World Cup. Normally it's the other way around. Well, that's irrelevant now. They've done it. So New Zealand have actually dropped off. They've only made the semi-final this time after not making the final in both 15 against Australia and 19 against England. So, all right. Any last questions, guys, before I sign off? Australia will win tomorrow, and India will win the final, and that's the way I see it, and that's the way it's predicted to go. The only boil over is South Africa somehow get the mental strength out of their rears to come through, and I don't think they've got that in them. And Australia played the game out of their life against India, and Maxwell and Marsh fire, but I can't see them doing that against an ultra strong, mentally, physically, talent-wise, skill-wise team of India. India are phenomenal. Their whole 11 players. They've got Ishak Kishan there waiting on Sadhu Thakur, Ashwin, for God's sake. They're all there in the wings. They've got an incredible side. Shami, 7 for today. Siraj, multiple wickets in his bowling. Bumrah's been very good too, but not as good as the other two, to be honest. Then Jadeja's sensational bat and ball. And then, of course, we've got KOHLI bowling extremely well as well. Good foil. There's not much to say, but I mean, Shreyas Iyer and Sky have gone through and wonders amazing. Then you've got probably the strongest top three that India's had since the likes of Dravid and Laxman and Ganguly and the like, with Gill, Rohit Sharma. What a captain. What sixes he hits, just beyond belief. He's in amazing form, both as a player and a captain. And last but not least, in this Indian team, they have the class act of Virat Kohli, who's just hit his 50th ODI century, his 80th overall. He scored 50, of course, in ODIs, 29 in Tests and 1 in T20. He's the leading T20 player. He's very quickly becoming the second highest in ODIs. I think he's got 1,000 runs to knock off both Sangakkara and Ponting. And then he's got the Test career, which has not reached the 10,000 plus mark with runs as yet, but he's still be in the top 10 batters overall in that as well. So that puts him basically only second to Tendulkar at batting stats. His performances over all three formats as an aggregate total. He's currently still fourth, but he's very close. I think he's fourth still, but very close to third, and will go into second position given about a season or two, only behind the master of Tendulkar. It was interesting to see David Beckham there with Tendulkar at the game, lording over Virat Kohli, who scripted the game beautifully, walking up those famous stairs. There's great photographs of that, which is where Tendulkar walked up, and Maxwell recently, and now Kohli, Virat Kohli. Viv Richards was there, applauding his play. Sehwag was after the game. Everybody applauded Virat Kohli because he is legendary status. He's 800 million bloody profile on social media says that as well. He's a class act. He's really only behind Ronaldo and Messi in the world of sport in its entirety. Probably the third most popular person in sport at the moment overall. India have helped that, of course, but that makes India with cricket. The biggest sport in the world is football or soccer, but second biggest is definitely cricket. Not only because of India, because India infiltrates all countries with Pakistanis and Sri Lankans. They're all over the world. They've made America the second biggest cricket audience behind India, and there are women's cricketers playing in all sorts of far-flung countries, which we didn't have before. Cricket's got a long way to go, and what I mean by that is it's the top sport other than soccer. Can Australia also have the ability to beat India? I think Ronan, absolutely not. Bubba should leave captaincy. Bit hard. I think he's maybe got some team issues there, but he's still a class act as well. Hasn't played his best, nor did Butler in the series, but they made pretty respective efforts overall. Afghanistan were brilliant. We know that. Afghanistan were absolutely sensational, thanks to Motion Sheikh and his group. Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, oh my God, there's a mess going on there. And especially after the game and played between the both. We're going to talk about Angelo Matthews' dismissal next night with David Graveney. All right, guys. All the best, guys. We'll take care. You've been a good audience tonight. Please don't miss out on where we're at with all this. We're really in with a great tournament. Ashes Ponting or Rowett, who has got the better pull shot? Tough one. It is a tough one. That's what. Look, Rowett Sharma's the best six hitter out of the two of them by for country mile. Ponting's more technical with his pull shots, but Rowett Sharma, scary the way he plays. Who do you think is the favourite for the next semi? Well, a favourite technically has to be South Africa because they're positioned on the table, but I think it's Australia. Mentally, they'll be up for this. They've been their momentum. They're peaking at the right time. Whereas South Africa's just come off a shellacking against India where they're all out for 83. 83. It's disgusting. Australia only scored 200 or 199 when they played them at less than 4 runs and over back at the earlier stage of the tournament. Yes, but I think Australia won't do that again. Yeah, but they were 7 for 91 against Afghanistan, weren't they? Could have been all that for 120 there as well. So there's an element of luck about all this. India target third title. This is the third title coming up. Yes, I would agree with that. Certainly is a big one. Any last questions, guys? Because I'm getting a bit on the tired side. We'll have more great guests next time. So KOHLI scored 711 runs so far. That was the he was still batting. Oh God. Oh boy, people criticise the weirdest things. Okay. All right, guys. Let's pull a call the night. Stay tuned. I'll be on in a few days' time. Please view, like, and share my posts, and particularly hit the subscribe button now. Hit the subscribe button now. Notifications so you get notified for these so-called live shows. This is my 560. Let me go look at what's the total here. It's whatever we got now. I should have a little total here. So where is it gone? My 561st live show. 561st out of some 1,879 videos or shows that I performed. 1,879. This is 1,879th show with 1,318 recorded and 561 live. There you go. South Africa choker. I'm afraid. Come on, that's exactly the title you got to give them. The way they played against Netherlands was a choke. The way they played against India was absolutely a horrendous choke. All out for 83. So, 99 final will be repeated. I think it will be. This is my arrogance, maybe, but I think if Australia bat first, they'll score 330, let's say. I predict that South Africa will be all out for 120. Why? Because they have got a mental disintegration of the highest order. India, Australia will play the final. Ashar Islam has just said, yeah, I would agree with that. They're probably being they're peaking at the right time. South Africa will choke. If South Africa doesn't choke, hats off to them. But I'm afraid their history tells us one mental strength or lack of is that they will choke. They can't bring in ex-players like Alan Donald or whomever you want to bring in to say how good they were back then and how they won tournaments, because they didn't. They choked for years. They've got no one there as a mentor to talk about how to survive a choke. Australia can bring in Ponting, Gilchrist, War, Border, and the list goes on of players that have won World Cups, T20 ODIs, you name it. They've won them. Hands down. South Africa have never won a World Cup. Never. Most cases have never gone beyond, in all cases, they've never gone to a final. They've only made a semi-final. And they got thrashed unceremoniously in all cases. There was rain in Kolkata tomorrow. Well, they said there was rain today for the match in Mumbai, but it didn't affect them. So if there's rain tomorrow in Kolkata, that's actually very damaging for Australia because South Africa technically are above them by way of the run rate. And the was on who were the higher ranked team. South Africa would go through. That's the only bloody hope South Africa have of going through into the final if it rains the whole time and there's a washout. And technically, by default, South Africa go through, which would be hilarious. Sorry, they're a choking bunch of players. Horrible, horrible state of affairs when it comes to choking. All right. Now, any more questions, guys, before I chuff off? No? All right. So we've gone long enough, I think. So stay tuned to our next show, which will be coming up in a matter of, before the final, which will be on Saturday. Stay tuned. This is Norman Kosek signing off from Windhoek, Namibia, my 121st country in the world. All the best. Take care. Any comments, please? Also write comments post this shot once it's been uploaded fully in the area there and make your comments there as well. All right, Asha, and the rest of you, thank you very much. All the best. Eyes on Cricket with Norman Koshtek. Eyes on Sports with a Z. You can see at the bottom there. Subscribe, please. And hit the notification button. See you again. All the best.